Hey you folks, Quill18 here, and welcome to the GOG.com Hearts of Iron 3 stream with me, Quill18. Main screen turn on. Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us. We're going to be doing a little bit of world conquest here in Hearts of Iron 3. Let me pull it up onto the main screen, and I'll explain to you what this game is in case you're not familiar with it. And bam! Everything is good shape. Excellent! So Hearts of Iron 3 is a game from Paradox Development Studios. It is one of their grand strategy games. A grand strategy game is an incredibly complex strategy game that is played in real time and has an incredible scope. In this game, for example, you start in 1936 on the sort of the dawn, or the pre-dawn, I suppose, of World War II, and every tick of the game engine is 1 hour. And you can play for over a decade. Quite a bit more. I'm not actually sure what the end date in Hearts of Iron 3 is, if there is a hard-coded end date. But you can go for at least a decade, 1 hour at a time, which is a pretty intense amount of scope. You control the politics, the espionage, the technology, the production queues, and of course move some units around and try to conquer the world. Hello everyone. Hey Toothless Shark. Hello, Ekaf, whose name I can't say. How do you remember your username? I don't know. Hey, Wafund. Hey, everyone. Thank you, everyone who's here on the on my Twitch chat, twitch.tv/Quill18, where I am hosting the GOG.com channel, which is twitch.tv/GOGCOM, where they play all kinds of awesome old games all the time. And, of course, you can always go to GOG.com and pick these games up. I believe that Hearts of Iron 3 is currently on sale since it just hit their website. You can get the base game there, and then you can get their sort of complete DLC package as well, which is what I'm playing here. The 3 expansions to Hearts of Iron 3 that came out, so Hearts of Iron 3 came out in, I think, 2009, and then there was expansion 2010, 2011, and 2012. Each one of those adds some interesting new gameplay mechanics. The latest one was their Finest Hour, and then, of course, there's a bunch of cosmetic DLC and stuff, which is included in that set as well. Let's go. Today we're going to play as Germany. Now, in terms of the Paradox Development Studios grand strategy games, Hearts of Iron is considered to be one of the more complex ones. If you're new to grand strategy, it will be a fair bit to handle. On the bright side, there's a lot of automation features. Now, if you really want to play super strong, you don't tend to want to automate too many things because you want manual control to really be able to like squeeze out every ounce of production and military efficiency that you can, especially if you're being a good, efficient German. In terms of learning the game a little bit, and also because we're going to be a bit pressed for time, we've got about 2 hours to play here, I'm going to be automating a fair amount of stuff as Germany. We're going to be playing very, very high-level command. We will literally be Hitler playing as Germany. If it is your first game, you might want to start as a somewhat smaller nation, more of a secondary nation that's a little bit less... where the world is going to revolve around you a little bit less, and you could learn some of the mechanics. There's some nice middle ground stuff, like playing as Italy might be a nice middle ground there, because obviously you're going to be involved in things right from the start, but again, you know, the world won't revolve around you in exactly the same way. But we are going to be playing as Germany. We're going to be starting on the Road to War bookmark over here. You can, if you want, jump straight into Blitzkrieg, September 1st, 1939, when the war is... I think you'll actually start in a war at that point, at war against, well, Poland and the Allies and all that. Or you could start Gathering Storm just on the fringe of it. But we're going to start in 36, so we can look at a few things. And yes, we are going to play as Germany. Bunch of options that you can tune over here. And you can even tune what the victory conditions will be for, say, the Axis, right? Because we're going to be on the Axis side. Which things have to have successfully gone to count as a thing. You always have to pick 15 victory conditions overall. But you can sort of tune what your goals will be. We'll just leave them on default for here. We're not going to have time to finish the war one way or another. Depending on exactly how fast we play, we might make it until 1940 or 1941. We'll see. Certainly, we will try to start the war, start the World War by going after Poland. We're going to play mostly historical. You can, if you want, you can mix things up a lot. You can try to change which faction different countries go into. You can change the order of the war. For example, you could declare on Poland earlier before they are guaranteed independence by the UK, at which point you can take over all of Poland without triggering a world war, for example. We got a few different options there. So here's the main screen. We are playing, again, as Germany over here. We've got a variety of resources up here: energy, metal, rare materials, oil over here. This is our industrial capacity, basically how quickly we can build things. One of the big things with Germany is they have a lot of industrial capacity. They can build a lot of things very aggressively. Here we've got our supplies, which covers everything your army needs to fight. You know, talking about food, bullets, that sort of stuff. Supplies constantly get used up by your troops, especially once they are fighting. We've got our actual fuel here, which is different from oil. Oil's got to be refined into fuel. And then we've got our money amounts over here. Here we've got manpower, how much extra dudes we've got kicking around ready to join our army. Then we've got our diplomatic influence, which we use to, well, do diplomatic deals and also try to encourage people to come over to the Axis. So the three sides in World War II, these are important concepts to the game. If I open up the diplomacy screen, we can see it quite clearly. There are three sides going on here. There's the Axis side, which is down here. That is Germany. Like, Germany is the leader of the Axis. Then you've got, you know, Italy, Japan. Those are the other two major players early on. And then, depending on how things go, other people may or may not join in. Down at the bottom left here, we've got the Comintern. So that is led by the Soviet Union. So those are all the communist nations. And then at the top here, we've got the Allies. The United Kingdom is the leader of the Allies. France starts off the game as a member of the Allies. Who else? Bhutan, France, Iraq, Nepal, Oman, United Kingdom, Yemen are all part of the Allies at the start. Only Germany's in the Axis, and Mongolia and Tuna Tuva are part of the Comintern. But that will change. And so one of the major parts of, well, of World War II historically, but also of this game, is to try to bring people over to your faction. So as Germany, we're going to try to encourage as many people as possible to join the Axis so that we will have more allies in the World War. The other big concept that exists in this game is the concept of neutrality and threat. For example, the United States can't do anything early on. Can't join any of the factions, can't declare war. In fact, the United States can't do a whole hell of a lot at the start because they are 100% neutral. They have said, listen, whatever goes on in Europe, in ERP, that's not our concern. We're going to stay the hell out of it. You know, you guys have your own crazy crap going on. We don't care about it at all. So the USA starts off 100% neutral. And then there's a concept of threat. And every country will have one nation that they consider to be the biggest threat in the world. And very quickly, as Germany, as we start to do a few things, our threat will increase. So other countries will start to see us as more of a threat. And once our threat goes above their neutrality, then they can start to do stuff about us. So there's going to be a combination of, a lot of these countries are going to try to bring down their own neutrality so they can join in the wars, or at least, you know, do some sanctions and things, while at the same time, we're going to try to keep our threat maybe a little bit low and manage that for a little while. Because once the US joins in, then obviously that is a big powerhouse that is going to come to the Allies' side. Luckily, the US always join really late. I mean, they'll take the credit for winning the war, but only after joining, you know, way too late to really help out a lot of too many other countries. Anyway. So those are the basic political concerns to deal with. So as I said, we're going to automate a few things to try to make life a little bit easier. The first thing we're going to automate in diplomacy is actually the trade. So trade is pretty important because there are those resources at the top. And as Germany, we actually have a fair amount of some things. But what we have the biggest shortage of is the rare materials. And we're really going to need to import quite a bit of it. And in fact, we want to import as much of that as possible before the war starts. Because once the war starts, a lot of our suppliers are not going to want to trade with us anymore. Plus, we're not really going to be able to run convoys for overseas trade. So, if you are playing on your own, setting up your own trade deals is actually very, very good for two reasons. One, setting up trade deals is one of the ways, actually is really the only primary way to improve relationships with another country. So if you want to become friends with a country, you set up a lot of trade deals with them. In fact, set up a lot of little trade deals with them because each one will give you a better relationship. Also, the higher relationship, the cheaper the trade deals. So you really want to sort of micromanage that and focus and get some good friends that can give you some good supplies. The other thing is, especially once the war breaks out, is we don't want to be doing trade deals with anyone overseas because our convoys will probably be sunk by the British Navy or the French Navy or the American Navy once they get into that. So that would be very, very, very unpleasant. Setting up a trade deal is very easy. We pick a country. What we can do is we can even sort. So we know we want some rare materials, right? So we can sort by rare materials. The United Kingdom is actually one of the biggest suppliers of rare materials. They have a surplus of 191 each day. So we can set up a trade agreement with that. We can say, hey, we would like to buy some of this stuff. And we can move this slider, and you can see they're very likely to want to sell us as much as possible. We can get 50 rare minerals or materials per day for 7.5 money per day, Right now, our money per day is not that huge. In fact, this is going to put us in a deficit. So we're going to have to turn around and sell something to really make that work out. Let's grab as little as possible while they're still very likely to accept. There we go. That won't run us into a penalty. And then one of the things we'd like to do, for example, as Germany, is we can produce lots of supplies. We could like produce tons of it. And you could turn around and sell that to other people. That's one of the ways that we're going to get a lot of our raw materials. But as I said, I'm just going to hit automate trade because it can be very time consuming to work all that out. We are on a time budget over here. We're going to automate trade. The AI will set up all these trade deals for us. It won't make necessarily the best deals all the time, but it will be good enough for us. You'll notice you can actually automate all of diplomacy over here. We could set the diplomacy to be AI controlled. That's the thing. Any part of the game you don't like to deal with, you can just automate the whole thing, and the AI will do its best to do that. At the very least, they'll play as well as they play the other AI nations, so you won't be worse off than the other nations, but you might not be able to squeeze out the maximum efficiency. We're going to come back to the diplomacy screen relatively soon. We're going to talk about production soon. We're actually going to flip over to intelligence first. Intelligence is where we do our spy stuff. There's going to be a few spy things we want to do right away before we unpause the game. We haven't unpaused it yet. It is it's midnight of January 1st, 1936. We haven't unlocked it yet or unpaused it. In intelligence, we get to deal with some spies. Now, what you can do is you can set your priority. We have 133 spies abroad right now. We currently only have one spy currently free, not doing anything. We have 5 spies in Germany itself performing counter-espionage. And we can sort here. We can see we've got 5 spies in France, 4 in Soviet Union, 4 in the United Kingdom, yada, 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 yada. We want to focus on a few countries right from the start to make sure, to get a few things done. One of our top priorities will actually be to send spies to France. And what we want to do in France, you can send them on a few different missions. Normally the spies just sort of sit around. If you don't give them an active mission, they do a little bit of everything and try to stay very low profile. Minimizes their chance of getting caught. We are specifically going to want to try to disrupt France's national unity. The way that you get a country to surrender in this war is every country has victory point locations. If we switch to that map mode here, all the provinces that are yellow here are provinces that are worth victory points. When you control a percentage of victory points above the country's unity, they'll surrender. So what do I mean? France has, and we can't see it as far as I can tell, which is kind of unfortunate. If we switch to France, we can see. As Germany, our national unity is about 90%. So if they wanted us to surrender, they would have to control 90% of the victory points on our side. France starts off with very low national unity. To start off with, they've got a lot of different parties going on. You know, the political situation is relatively volatile, and we're going to send our spies there to bring it down even lower as much as possible, which means we will have to capture very few victory points to get them to surrender completely. Paris itself is worth 30 points, which is where the majority is. Like here, it's worth 2. That's worth 2. Calais is worth 1 and 1. Basically, as soon as we take Paris, assuming their national unity is low enough, they should surrender. So hopefully we can do that. We can keep messing with them as much as possible. So that's one priority for our intelligence. And really that's the top priority. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to set a secondary priority on the Soviet Union, the United Kingdom. Both of those will mostly do counter-espionage so they don't screw with us too much. Although one of the things you could do in the UK is you could increase their perceived threat, which will make it less likely that people would join the Allies. Actually, maybe we'll do that. We'll increase the UK's threat. So we're going to do propaganda to make everyone think that the UK are scary, they're trying to conquer people, that sort of thing. We have to send, Austria will also be another big priority for us. In fact, we're going to make Austria the second most priority because we'll look soon, there's a decision you can take. In diplomacy, there's a variety of these decisions here. And if you hover over the question mark, you can see the criteria for it. And one of the first things we'll be able to do is the Anschluss. I can't pronounce anything properly. The Anschluss of Austria, which basically will just annex Austria peacefully. Yes. And this will happen basically no matter what in the game, because the criteria is one of the following must be true. Either the Austrian Nazi Party has to have a popularity of at least 40 in Austria, or it has to have the modifier political crisis in Austria. The political crisis in Austria will fire eventually. So we'll get Austria at some point, but we can speed it up. If we go and support the Nazi Party in Austria, we can get them to become part of Germany even sooner. So in our intelligence screen for Austria, here, we're going to tell it to support our party. It's going to support the Nazi Party in Austria so that they will join us that much faster. I thought there was one more I wanted to do. Yeah, maybe we're fine. So yes, France, right from the start, we're going to try to disrupt their national unity. Austria, we're going to support our party. United Kingdom will increase threat. We could also do counter-espionage, which might be a good idea, because you can set a couple of different priorities there. First, try to increase threat, but also do a little counter-espionage. Soviet Union, just do counter-espionage, and there we go. So, how do we get more spies? Well, on the technology screen, we get a certain number of leadership points over here, and we can spread it out into a few different categories. Research, espionage, diplomacy, and officers. We'll talk about officers later on, but this is how you you generate more spies, is by having points dedicated to espionage. Germany, highest priority of spies, counter-espionage. Did I forget to set that? Well, I have it there. It's the only thing that's got priority, so that's what they're going to be. But I should make it, I should make having spies in Germany top priority. You max it at 10 anywhere, and they will go to counter-espionage. I suppose, whether I have 1 notch or 3, it doesn't matter, because I don't have anything set up anywhere else. But there we go. Yeah, we want counter-espionage in Germany. So they will find and neutralize enemy spies. Because of this exclamation mark here, we know there are enemy spies in our country right now. So we would like to catch them and kill them. Here you can see on our... this is the Soviet Union. We can see their Communist Party has a 52% percentage there. With enough espionage, we might be able to get the Nazis, basically, the Fascist Party, to gain control. But it's hard. I think the Nazis are the Grey Party. If I take a look at my cell phone, say the diplomacy screen. I don't know how. Oh, politics. Yeah, gray is the color of the fascists. So they all have different names in different countries, but that's the case. In fact, one thing that is theoretically possible to do in the USA, and I don't remember if there's spying I want to do in the USA to slow them down. I don't remember. But we could start supporting the, is it the light gray or the dark gray? I don't know, one of these. We could start supporting the fascists in America. Could happen. We're going to wait. We're going to wait until we've maxed out our spies everywhere else before we do that sort of stuff. Let's set up our technology first. So this is the tech screen in this game. There is a lot of different technology going on here. It's sort of a tech tree, but it's not quite that clear because every tech has multiple levels of upgrade. For example, currently for the cavalry small arms over here, we are currently at level 3. And we could research 4. Yeah, that's what it is. So we're currently at level 3 of cavalry small arms. We could research level 4, and it goes all the way up to 12. Different technologies have different limits. So each one of these has multiple levels, and then you need different things to unlock. For example, if we wanted to be able to start building medium tank brigades, we would actually, if you mouse over, you see we need to make sure that our light tank guns, armor, engines, and reliability are at least level 2 before we do that. They're currently at level 1. So there's that sort of tree structure, and then we have to do a bunch of research on medium tanks before we can get to heavy tanks, and then research there before we can get to super heavy tanks, for example. All of these technology levels have 2 numbers here. The year is the year you're supposed to research it in. Or the level of the technology, which is to say, if it's ahead, and that becomes very obvious over here, right, like if we want to research assault weapons for our engineers, we could, but technically this is a 1939 tech, which is 3 years ahead of time, which means we would have a pretty significant research penalty going on because it's so far ahead of time. Not only that, but there's this little number here, which represents the difficulty of researching this technology for us. Now, this has nothing to do with the year of the research. Because it becomes especially obvious over here, like this Schwerpunkt. I don't German. This Schwerpunkt over here, even though it's a 1918 tech, so basically there's no year penalty whatsoever, the difficulty is listed as 10. And why is that? Well, because this technology is modified by your knowledge in the Spearhead Doctrine and land combat experience. That's what these symbols here mean. Any of the symbols that are green are theoretical information, and anything in blue is practical information. So we're getting a huge penalty to this because 70% of the contribution from how fast we can research this tech comes from a land combat experience, and we don't have that much right now. We have 1 point in it, and 10, I think 10 is the cap. So unless we start actually like fighting people and start developing land combat experience, it's actually going to slow us down quite a bit to research this tech. On the other hand, we have a lot of skill in the Spearhead Doctrine, but only 30% of that contributes. If we close that, we can see here our current status and everything. As Germans, we start off with a huge, huge ability in the Spearhead Doctrine. We can see we have 10 points there. We have a lot in submarine engineering. Our subs are going to be fantastic. Our infantry practical and theoretical is really good. Our tank theory, automotive theory is very good. Automotive practical or armor practical is about half and half. Really good for artillery. So there's certain areas we're going to excel in. And so depending on which nation you play as, you might want to prioritize different types of technologies because you're going to have different skill there. You can research theory in any field that you want to improve your theory somewhere here. We don't need to do this though. Let's start queuing up some research though. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and queue up any research that's from 1936 and earlier that I'm interested in. That way we won't have too much of a penalty. For example, our infantry divisions, that's going to be a priority. Let's go ahead and queue that up. So I can click on it and then hit start research, or I can just double click. And you can see it queue up over here, and you can see a little magnifying glass here that we're researching it. So I'm going to queue up all the 1936 infantry tech. That's going to be a good start. Also, we're going to use a little bit of militia. Militia are not terribly good in a stand-up fight, but they're cheap and they're nice for maybe just doing sort of a token defense somewhere. They can be good to like throw along your ports, maybe, to make it a little harder for the UK or US or whoever to do a naval invasion, for example, that sort of thing. Now, all we're going to use them for is defense, so I'm going to queue up the militia support weapons, which increases their defensiveness for garrisons. I don't think we're going to use cavalry. That's not really going to be our thing. Cavalry does still have a role to play in World War II if the terrain is terrible. I think maybe as Japan, there's a value to cavalry, because I think when you're invading China and Eastern Russia, I think there's a lot of like swampy terrain and that sort of thing, and cavalry does better than armor. I'm not sure. Not sure. Armor is next. We are going to definitely queue up all the light tank tech, because A, we're going to use some light tanks for sure in our war, so we want that unlocked. But we also do want to research medium tanks. We want to get the proper Panzer IIs. I don't know. Listen, I'm not a history buff. I don't have all those names memorized. But we are going to make use of medium tanks. Heavies, I'm not sure. I mean, they're a later thing. We'll think about it maybe. But light and medium, very quick, good for that sort of blitzy kind of thing. I don't know if we have to research any anti-tank stuff right now. Although the anti-aircraft might be helpful. These are be upgrades for our so you can see it upgrades our AA, anti-aircraft units, as well as our motorized anti-aircraft units. Maybe. I don't know how much of that we're going to build. I think we're mostly going to build interceptors. I think we'll actually just use planes as anti-aircraft rather than AA units. I do want to get self-propelled artillery. Artillery is awesome, but it's slow. We'll be attaching artillery to our infantry units, but until we get our self-propelled artillery, which is basically like a tank with a giant gun on top, we're not going to attach any to our tank squads. But then we will want to unlock this and attach them maybe to our medium tank brigades. We'll see how it goes. I don't know about researching armored tanks or armored cars. I don't know if we're going to build armored cars. Maybe? I don't think so. That's not part of our motorized infantry, is it? I'm not sure. Escorts. We do want some submarine technology. Now, you'll notice some of these are ahead of time. Now, they're only a year ahead, which wouldn't be too bad. We'll go ahead and get the submarine hull upgrade. And you know what? I'll go ahead and queue them all up. We're going to try to build some nice subs. We're going to use them to sink all the British convoys. Yes, we'll be doing some industry research. Capital ships, maybe. I don't think the game's going to go on long enough for us to really do like a proper invasion of Britain. There is something to be said about some aircraft carrier technology, though, that would do well. Battleships. I think we'll just ignore the Navy in this run. Fighters. Is there anything we can upgrade for our fighters right now? Multi-role fighter development's a little early for that. I think we're going to hold off. Let's go and take a couple of bomber upgrades. Industrial tech. Most of ours is up to date. So we could start researching some industry tech, but it'd be a little slow. I think what we'll do is we'll start next year. In 37, we'll start to queue some of this stuff up. Secret tech, including nuclear bombs. Yeah, we're going to hold off on that here, but it is pretty awesome. Theory we don't need. Doctrines are important. Specifically, as Germany, a lot of our strength will come from that sort of blitz, that speed. You want to win the war, starting a carrier tech right now. Well, we're not going to play that far. As Germany, we're going to rely on speed quite a bit. So mobile warfare is nice because it actually gives us, well, more speed for our HQs. It gives us a bonus to breakthrough, which is nice. It also eventually leads to the Spearhead Doctrine, which doesn't increase speed, but I'm not going to talk about combat with. It's going to be too complicated. That's very good. The thing that's really, really nice for us as Germany is the operational level organization. So there's a delay between attacks. After you start an attack somewhere, your units need X number of hours to sit and chill before they can move again, because they have to reorganize themselves. By using this, we can minimize that time, which is really important as Germany, because we want to be able to just like blitz and go through very quickly, punch through using our light tanks, and try to go there. What else do we want? What else do we want early on? A lot of these are very good. Is there anything here that gives us more leadership? Someone's bringing up. There's actual Blitzkrieg over here. It is very difficult to research until we can get some practical land combat experience. And it's also slightly ahead of time, so we might wait on that. Operational level command structure, we want that. Bonus to attack movement. Alright, so we've got a queue going on right now. There's a few more things. We can take some naval stuff here. Oh, trade interdiction, submarine doctrine. We're going to want that, but it's too far ahead, so we'll wait off on that. We've got lots of techs queued up. We're going to be okay. We'll want some fighter tech as well. So I've got 17 projects queued up right now, and it says of 7.42 possible. Because of my current setting in my research, we're only being researching the first 7.5 technologies. This one's going to research at half speed. I can go and put more points in here. I can also just click on this button right here, which will allocate the amount needed. Now, I don't need it. I can pre-queue a lot of this stuff, and it's fine. What I think I'm going to do is I'm going to set my research rate to somewhere around, maybe around 10. We'll research 10 techs at the same time. I'm going to right-click on the slider to lock that in place, and now I can mess with everything else without breaking anything. We're going to set our officers. I don't know how much we need necessarily. So, your armies need officers. This number here is what your officer coverage is. If you're ever below 100% officer coverage, then you're going to get a penalty to your combat. If you're above 100, I think you can get a bonus up to 140, and then it caps there. And so we really want to be at 140% basically when the war starts. So we're going to keep an eye on that. I don't know how many officers we necessarily need, but we'll do that. I'll lock in my diplomacy somewhere around here, and then we'll feed the rest into espionage, and I think that'll be a decent number. I don't know. We'll see. Just going to have a drink, catch up on the chat a bit. Sure, punked is important. Yeah, I usually do research it. It's a lot of extra morale bonus. We'll add it to the queue for sure. One of the things to note, when a tech does finish, it actually gets reinserted in the queue at the bottom on the next level. Okay, technology is fine-ish. We can assign some more efficient laws. These are really important. There'll be little pop-ups here to remind you of things. We're going to leave it be for now because we actually don't have enough money to allocate the laws. We'll look at the politics screen soon. The next thing we should probably look at is the production screen over here. So, this is where you build things. Now, we've got a variety of sliders over at the right because your country wants a few different things, including things like just consumer goods. People want, I don't know, radios and bread and stuff like that to keep them happy. If you don't produce enough consumer goods, you will start to get unrest, or dissent rather, which is bad. So you always want to be producing your baseline of consumer goods. If you do have some dissent, you can produce more than the baseline to try to bring that down a little bit faster. Other than that, Lend-Lease we're probably not going to talk about much. We'll see how it goes. Production is our build queue. So here we've got our build queue over here. Right now we need basically 14 to produce all 3 things at the maximum rate that they can be built. However, we're actually going to queue up some more things here soon, so we're going to need a lot more than that. Supplies. What we need here is just to maintain our current army. If we don't produce enough supplies, then our stockpile will go down, and eventually our troops will really start to suffer. We're really going to want to produce more supplies than what we need, because we're going to be selling some of these. I'm going to produce like 50 a day or something like that, and then right-click on the slider to do that, because that will increase our stockpile of supplies, and then we can trade that away for more money that we can then turn around and import more goods with.